This is support week, and we are talking about how to raise our kids when we are questioning our own faith, and what do we tell them, how do we answer questions, what do we even do. So for that, we have Kathy Ives with us tonight. Kathy is a mom and a wife, and she has lots and lots and lots and lots of experience with children, and we get to hear from some of that tonight. So Kathy, come on up.
Hi, you guys. Here. I am talk about this because I have my whole talk in front of me here, so I better pull it up. But because I'm already like, oh, let me tell you what I'm really thinking, which is all written down in a sense that you can actually understand, as opposed to me just doing it randomly. So we're gonna actually go off ordered notes here, because otherwise you guys are gonna be like, what just happened? So anyway, so I'm glad I'm here, because what I want to talk about with you is that you can parent confidently, and even if you don't know what you believe. And I know you guys are all over the place with having kids, having grown kids, maybe influencing people in your life, but not having kids, or maybe even not being around kids. Everybody's in a different spot with that. I still believe that this is a talk that will work for everybody. So even if you're not sure what you believe or who you're influencing, you are influencing people. And sometimes when we don't know what we believe, we feel like we lose our voice, and then we can't talk about things, but you still can. And so I kind of want to talk about, that's what I want to talk about. And I'm going off notes. I've given this a lot of thought for you guys, because it's something that I've been mulling around in my own head for a long time now on how to figure this out. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story. You're going to hear a little bit about that, and then you'll understand why I'm mulling it over so much. Okay, so we'll go from there to start with. Okay, so, and now I'm going back to my notes and my reading glasses, okay? So first of all, I've been married to my husband for 34 years this month. That's Marty right there. I thought it was 33, but since I had to practice this speech with somebody, he found out it was not 33. So there we go. I think he already knew. Okay, together we have 6 kids. Their ages 30 through 20 years old, and there's no twins in there. So that means that I was pregnant almost 5 years solid in my life. And no, there's no twins in there either. And it also means that I figured this out. I calculated this just for you guys. I spent 17 years of my life prepping spelling tests with kids. Do you still do those? Do you guys still have those? Oh, I'm so jealous. No spelling test? So now we don't have to spell anymore, right? You don't have to spell, and you don't have to write. There's no more license to write. Do you guys remember that too? When they had to do the cursive, license to write in cursive, they had to get a license. It was very cool. Okay, anyway, I grew up in a non-practicing Catholic family in Chicago. I went to Catholic schools through high school, and I found God at an Amway convention with my husband in my 30s. And I already knew who God was, obviously, but I just didn't have the biblical teachings to back it up. So at this point in my life, I thought I had it all figured out, and that's the kind of stuff I want to talk to you guys about, because I could parent on a solid foundation, and I founded it in the Bible, right? I decided that this was the way to fix everything about me, because I was also broken, and to protect my kids from the world that would not tell them that they were fearfully and wonderfully made. Because I believed, and I still believe, that my kids are made perfect, and that God is pleased with the way He made my kids. So I also started to dedicate myself to kids ministry in my neighborhood and at my church. So some of you guys know me from a church way back a year ago now for me. And so I wanted to share God with other kids. And I grew up in an alcoholic and verbally abusive home, and I wanted all the kids to know that they could have a better image about themselves than I had when I was growing up, and I knew that God could help them with that. After all, it helped me even as an adult, and I wanted my kids and their parents to understand how much God loved them and that they were worthy. I thought that was very important. I still believe this, and I still believe that knowing God's important. I think what's changed for me in the past several years is I'm not sure that the God of my childhood is the God I know now. So for my kids' growing up years, I taught Bible stories as bedtime stories, values during breakfast, and worked through wrongs and rights with my kids every day. I was intentional. My husband and I were intentional. And we made lists and priorities and based on Bible references. And we talked about what we believed and what we valued and what we wanted for our kids when they grew up. And we followed through on all of our teachings and our discipline based on and agreed upon values and priorities. You guys can picture that, right? We were perfect parents. We had a list. We knew what we were doing. We talked about it all the time. We never argued. Yeah, right. That's exactly how it was. That's what we wanted. We got as close to that as we could. And for me, I wanted my kids to hear things that I didn't hear when I was growing up. I wanted them to hear you're perfect. And I wanted them to hear that God made them for a purpose and that there was a plan for their lives. And that was really important. I wanted them to know they were worthy, right? I believed that this message, for it to be really to root in my kids' hearts, I had to completely embrace the faith that I was practicing in our religion. And for our kids' sakes, we needed to be unshakable in that space. We had to be absolutely sure, right? So, okay, I want to pause here because I'm not the best speaker in the world. And so some of the things I'm saying here are hard for me to say because they're cumbersome in my mouth. So the idea of parent based parenting based on religion and faith is faith and religion-based parenting. I cannot say that for the next 10 minutes, whatever long this talk is, because it's like a tongue twister to me. So we're going to turn it into a new word. It's going to be frug, and the U is silent. There's nothing that matches the U. So it's faith, religion-based parenting, and we're just going to call it frug, and you guys are going to have to put up with that. But it kind of takes away all the other stuff, right? Like religion and beliefs and faith, they're not the same thing, and I know that, okay? But for this purpose today, for what we're talking about, I'm grouping them all together because that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about how to parent when you don't know what those things are, okay? So just bear with me, and I'm sorry because FRUP is ridiculous. I realize that, okay? So I believe that I had to have all the answers for my kids, and I believe that all these answers could be found in the Bible and my current church's interpretation of the Bible. I believed in my church's teaching for my kids, especially in high school and middle school, because if they said it, I backed it up. And I didn't worry too much about exactly what the subtext was because I figured it was biblically based. So if they were hitting on some shame and brokenness type stuff, I figured, well, it was biblically based. And gosh, I have a lot of shame and brokenness too. So it seems very logical. So that was good for us, right? I didn't look anywhere else for information either. If it wasn't Christian, I didn't consider it. I mean, this is what I thought. How can people parent when they don't know where the lines are? Now here I am telling you, you can, okay? I needed a moral compass and a dividing line of sorts. And Christianity, faith, religion, that whole package became that for me. It made sense and I liked it. What I'm saying is that I very seldom read anything that wasn't Christian, right? Ultimately, what I believe that is if I taught according to the guidelines of my church and my whole faith religion, my kids would grow up to be who they need to be. They would be whole, hearty, and hale. That's FRUP. There it is, right? Okay, so you guys, now you're going to put up with my FRUP word for a while. You're going to find yourself saying it next week. Okay, so how'd this go for us? It went great until it didn't. It went great until my now adult kids went out into the world and brought pieces of themselves back to us, pieces of what they learned, start sharing their own understanding, information, and personal truths with my husband and I. Thank God we are perfect parents, so we were mostly open and willing to listen to our kids. No, really, we did listen, and they helped us to see the world differently. And I'd like to say, oh, it's because we're amazing, but the truth is, I think they beat us on the head a couple of times too. But we did start seeing things differently and understanding that. So I have so many good examples. Which example do I use for this to explain to you guys? So I went with a really mild one here. But my kids questioned our stance on lots of things and the church's stance on lots of things. For instance, one of my kids had a big deal with poverty and hunger, right? So one of my kids has always had a heart for the poor and the homeless ever since they were tiny. They could never pass a homeless or hungry person on the street without pleading with Marty and I to give them money to give to this person. It just broke their heart. This kid was even good at getting money from their older siblings so that they could give it away. Pretty smart kid. This kid started asking bigger and more educated questions. This kid studied the Bible. and ask things like, why do we have a house and food and they don't? Why does God allow poverty, pain, rape, starvation if you say he is a good God? Do you think they're just not praying? You said if we pray that God will give us all things according to his will. You showed me that in the Bible. Is it not his will to help them? Does that make it his will to let them starve? Then how can he really be good? Now, I know it's a classic set of questions. We've all had that one asked in some form, I would guess, somewhere in our lives. And in the early years, as a frup mom, I could just brush them off with the classic response, like, God's ways are not our ways. We may never understand. We need to trust his plan. And if you're a Bible scholar or a philosopher, you probably have an answer to these questions that's deeper than mine. But the most raw part of my heart knew that we know it's not okay. And the people do that for people to be homeless or starving or in pain or victims of abuse, we know it's not okay. So how did I answer my kids? How did I satisfy their questions? I could not. How can God be so good? God still be good. And I said, I don't really know, because I don't. So this is a big topic, and there's many other ones that my kids talked about. And my brilliant daughter, who edited this for me because she's an English major, now I just gave away who she is. She didn't want to know. It's Charlotte. We're going to tell you that she added these in here for me because she said I could throw her under the bus on that one. She was helping me. She's typing in here. Oh, you need to put this in here. You need to put that in there. She's like, here's some of the good questions you should ask them. Are gay people evil? Did God have a wife? Was Mary really a virgin? Was Paul just on lots of psychedelics? And what was actually going down between Jesus and Mary Magdalene? So for the sake of the fact of my 22-year-old daughter, I added those in there for you guys. Because she thinks they're all funny. And she also thinks that is a good way to make fun of the church she came from. My point is the kids helped us see and still help us do see. And they shook our unshakable outlook on God, faith, and religion. So, all right, so I realized that my own faith and beliefs were shifting, and I didn't really know what I believed anymore. So if I'm not certain about my faith, religion, package, frup deal, if I don't know what capital T truth is, then how can I teach my kids? How can you guys influence the people around you, right? How can I lead if I don't know where I'm leading? So this is where I was recently, and then I realized, honestly, you don't need to know. And this is why. For one thing, being sure and knowing all the answers leaves no room for questions. There can be unintended consequences. By the way, that's really hard for me to say. Charlotte put those two words in there. Unintended consequences are very big. Unintended consequences to FRUP that teaches certainty and not curiosity, open-mindedness, or the importance of learning new things. Some unintended consequences of FRUP that I witnessed with my own kids and friends is this. If a kid bases their worth on FRUP and your FRUP or theirs shifts, the very foundation of their sense of self-worth is jeopardized. And I have seen that. Kids can lose their sense of purpose, and so can adults, right? It was based on FRUP teachings and what those teachings told them about God's plan for them. If it doesn't match up anymore, they don't know where they're going. And a lot of adults who've deconstructed from FRUP have felt lied to by their families and their churches of their childhood, causing a sense of disillusionment and even betrayal. And this isn't the future we want for our kids. This also can leave people feeling like they have no safe place, no safe community. So I want to say it again. I'm not anti-God, I'm not anti-church, but we have to be so careful to leave room for new information. So Marty and I did do some things right, now that we just complained about all the things we didn't. We planned together, we agreed on our priorities, we parented as a team, and so if you are parenting in a team, I suggest you do it together. And if you can support someone who is not parenting as a team and be their sounding board, oh my gosh, do that for them, right? We were intentional parents. We were not lazy about what our kids were learning, and I thought we were progressive as well, and that we straddled church teachings and the world view in a very stable, solid way. I mean, I let them read Harry Potter. Yeah, you're proud of me, Mary. I see her nodding. I bet they read it at my house. So we talked to our kids about all kinds of stuff. One of the things that we did that's my favorite, and I want to share with you tonight, and is that we had this list of top 5 priorities that we agreed on and focus on intentionally. It's kind of like a small number of things that we thought were most important for our kids to know. And I want you to know that that ties right back into the fact that you can parent when you don't know what you know, because, or what you believe. You got to know something, but if you can parent when you don't know what you believe, because if you know what's important to you, you can still parent, right? And you can still lead, and you can still influence. It's all the same. So where do we get this idea from? So Marty and I did teach a few parenting classes back in the day when I thought we were good parents. And we taught this process that we learned about in a book called Get Out of Your Kids' Faces and Into Their Lives. It was by Valerie Bell. We did not love the book, but we loved this idea. Don't tell me sorry. That's not a really good promo. I wondered if I should put that in there, but no. Okay. The basic thought to choose your battles, right? The reasoning is that if you want a relationship with your kid that goes beyond discipline and training and includes time to hear and see them and love them, you need to not be in their faces about everything, but only the things that are most important. The book says 5 things, but I think the number's up to you. We had 4 for a really long time, and then we had 5, so it worked. Maybe you discover you have 3 or 6. You just don't want too many, or they'll all just become noise to your kids. So we love this idea. We didn't want to be naggy parents, but more importantly, this process gave us a formula for being intentional with our kids and an easy way for us to parent together and in agreement. So we sat down and we agreed on top things, values we wanted for our kids to embrace. And you guys are so lucky because we were going to share them with you today. They shouldn't be yours, but they were ours. So, and I was trying to figure this out 15 years ago, 20 years ago. I mean, my gosh, when did we write it? We're old. You're old. That would be you. That would be you. All right, all right. So here's our 5. Our home is a safe place. And that comes a lot from my background. That's where I came from. I needed that to be a thing. Be a person of integrity and character. Stand up for what you believe. Honor yourself, your family, others, and God. We use the word other-centeredness a lot for that value. We thought that was really important. And then our last one was do everything to your best ability, which is funny because I've been kind of asking my kids, do you remember what did you think we thought was important? You know, when we've been doing kind of some of that stuff. And none of them said that. And then I brought it up and I think it was Celeste. She's like, that checks out. Yeah, that was really important. Because we were always like, just do your best. But do your best, you know? So anyway, okay, strong faith, if you didn't notice this, was not one of those at all, right? So why? Why wasn't strong faith one of our top values? It's because we believed that our faith was the basis of all worthy values. Now, I'm pretty sure that faith is really just another value. And I'm still trying to figure that out, but I don't think it's the basis for all values. I think it's the value. And that's a new idea for me, so you guys can tell me I'm wrong later, okay? Still figuring it out. So here's another interesting fact that makes me believe that faith is just a value too, is that when we made that list, we generated it from our own life experiences and what was important to us at the time. And then because we thought the list and our parenting had to be faith-based to be valid, we grabbed the Bible and dug out some appropriate verses to validate our priorities. Shocking, isn't it? Okay, so what we didn't know at the time, but looking back, we realized is that we didn't need to do this Bible exercise to prove that our top 5 values were valid. They were ours, and we agreed on them, so they're valid. So what am I saying? Faith is a value. It is not the only value. Faith does not create values. Not all values spring from the basis of your faith or religion. Some, and maybe all, including faith, spring from your life experiences and maybe family values that you grew up with. So, as I said, I'm still figuring this out, so I would love to hear what you have to say about it. Okay, so once again, not knowing what you believe does not have to stop you from parenting your kids. So I still think God and my personal faith is very important, and I'm sure many of you do too. But if you're going to start with your most important values, they may include faith or relationship with God or seeking God. Maybe. We can parent as we dig and learn about our faith simultaneously. and we can grow in faith together with our family and our kids. If I had to do it all over again, I'd make one of my values for my kids to practice curiosity as opposed to certainty. I would remind them that they might not hold all the answers and that they cannot always be certain of the answers they hold, unless it's a math problem, of course. I would want to teach them that they can thrive even when things get confusing and maybe model this way of life for them. I guess I'm kind of modeling it for them now. And I think we still do model at all ages. So I believe that you can parent kids at any age and influence people in your community intentionally when you know what your values are and which ones are important to you. The bottom line on the value is this: you, in agreement and collaboration with your parenting partner or the people of influence around you, choose your family values. You choose how many and what's important. You might base it on your life experiences or your family of origin. Your values will not be the same as your neighbors, even if you believe the same things or go to the same church. And you guys know what I mean. Who here has great friends that you stopped hanging out with when you all had kids because you couldn't stand the way they parented? All right, yeah, don't. Because you couldn't, right? Everybody knows somebody. I mean, and it all gets down to values. It doesn't make them a bad parent. They just thought other things were more important. So I think that's a thing that I finally realize now. All right, I never judged. Okay. Okay, so I have some fun data for you. I had access to a really great book that's from Orange, which is the company that we use for curriculum back at the church I was at before, right? And the company, they had this book they did. It was a ton of surveys, and it's the name of the book was, I'm trying to find, What Most Parents Aren't Telling You. And they did all this stuff about Christian population books, the Christian parent population, and then general parent population, and what was important to parents, okay? And so the top 3 things they came up with, no surprise: mental health, access to opportunities, and character development. Values, right? Over 95% of the general population and Christian parents, both of them, say character development is extremely important. You know, they had the not important, most important, extremely important, the top one, and that's values. So I'm going to read you the top 15 that all those family people said were important, all the people that were surveyed, just for trivia. And you're not going to be surprised: honesty, compassion, peace, respect, knowledge, love, forgiveness, trust, responsibility, self-control, confidence, wisdom, kindness, commitment, and integrity. So what we're going to do soon is we're going to start thinking about what maybe values you have. Doesn't matter if you are a parent or not. So you guys get a chance to kind of talk about that, right? What values do you have? Do you think are important? But before we do that, I want to give you some insight. Here's some of the things that could help with your list. I don't know if anyone in here has young kids anymore. Does anyone have young kids? Yeah, yours are probably the. We have down to 5. Oh, you have the youngest, yeah. So, and still not doing spelling tests. Oh, I'm so sorry for you. Feel sad. Okay. So some of these will might apply for you guys, maybe not. So first of all, don't get too attached to your values. And if you do have older kids, you guys probably see this too, because they might get reprioritized as your kids grow up or your wherever you are changes. Values, I think that can change a little bit. But for tonight, as you're trying to figure it out, maybe you want to choose the ones for your family where they are now. The other thing that's kind of funny, and we've done this with our kids, is if you don't pick values and choose which one you want to be intentional on, they're still there. And so you may not have intentionally chose them, but your kids are still learning them because they're watching you and you're acting them out, even if you haven't named them. So pay attention. And if you don't know how to get started, phone a friend or a kid and go ask them what they think, and they will tell you what your values are, because you'll be surprised. You go up to say, what do you think makes me the maddest? And or if your kids are older, what's my pet peeve? And that's a lot of times tied right directly to what your values are. And okay, don't expect your kids to keep all your values in their adult lives. Adult kids have their own set of values that intersects their childhood or parent inherited set of values. And that's okay. I mean, do you have all the same values as your parents? No offense to the parents that have parents here, right? Yeah. Okay, so my kids kept some of our values, but we taught. But I also noticed that they didn't keep as much of the frog as they did the values, which I thought was interesting and fits right into my thesis here. Okay, and I'm okay with that. I mean, none of my kids' faith looks like mine or Marty's. None of our kids go to church, and several of them don't even believe in God, or at least not the God of their childhood. But I'm not upset. I'm so proud of my kids. They are living their values and thinking for themselves. I think that would be my value for them, right? All right, so that's my big thesis you guys get to talk about. But I thought what we would do, I brought notebook paper because it's still from when my kids were in school that I have because, oh, so sorry. Okay, so I brought notebook paper if you need paper, but it'd be fun for you guys to group up whatever makes sense to you because I don't know how your relationships are with each other, who knows who or whatever, and just be like, what do you think? I suggest you write down everything you think is important, and then you guys go back and circle the ones that you think are most important. But you can do it however you want because I'm not here to tell you what to do. And then maybe we'll talk about it after that.